Okay, so let's begin with. There's a lot here. I'll be very honest. I don't know how clear this is going to be, but I'm going to try my best. I'm going to try my best. So we have a stira between Sif Aleph and Sif Zayin. Frekt Aruch HaShulchan. Frekt Aruch HaShulchan that the Yesh Aimrim in Sif Aleph comes along and teaches us Chol Zayin Aser Elik Shoyz in the Tzarech Laila. Avok Shemat in the Tzarech Machar, it's Mutter. And Paskins the Ramah, B'diavad Yesh Lisvach Hazeh B'vad Shal Yiragulas is king. Then comes along Sif Zayin, and the Ramah says, if it's Chayla Gamrin, it's Vash Kol Tzarker, Mutter Batamani Kamay B'Shia. Like we learned in Reish and Gimel. Uben Makshin Agul HaKal, Pis Varzu, in Limchos B'Yadam. Aval in Linoig, Kain B'Shar Mekaimis. So, Frekt Aruch HaShulchan, in Ois Ches, L'chayra, we have a stira between Sif Aleph and Sif Zayin. And to make it simpler is we have really two shaylos. Is L'tzarech Machar a heter? Is a V'shekol Tzarka a heter? If either of those were hetirim, we would finish the sugya before we started, because not everything is a tzarech machar, but often it's a tzarech machar, and often it's mevushkol tzarkai, and that's really the Aruch HaShulchan's kash over here. The Aruch HaShulchan continues, and now we're in Ois Tes. Aruch HaShulchan comes along, and he wants to start making this into machlekes rishonim, the Rashbam, etc. But Taisus and other rishonim disagree, and he's very bothered. Thank you very much, Rabbi Davis. I appreciate it. He's very bothered by the different lashonos in the Ramah. On one hand, he says, "B'diavad yesh lismaich," and then over here he says, "Makim shenagu." What exactly is going on over here? But the Mishnah Berurah, is he machalik between Sif Aleph and Sif Zayin? No. Mishnah Berurah seemingly comes along and learns it's all one shita, and therefore, lefi the Mishnah Berurah, we have a big kasha. Are we mekel when it's l'tzarech machar? Are we mekel when it's mevushakol tzarkai? The Aruch HaShulchan, let's just be clear, the Aruch HaShulchan tries to split Sif Aleph and Sif Zayin, saying it's a machlekes rishonim, which that's a gishmak to make a machlekes within the Ramah. That's what Aruch HaShulchan tries to do. For the Mishnah Berurah in Sivkata and Yud Aleph, it's clear that the Mishnah Berurah is learning that this is all one shita, and therefore we're back to a stira between Sif Aleph and Sif Zayin. Lamaisa, how does the Mishnah Berurah paskin? He says we could be seimach on the Yesh Aimrim. Why? Because Harbe Achrayim hold that way. Ubifrat, says the Mishnah Berurah, if it's a special called tzarka, which is clear in the Mishnah Berurah, that be'etzem we have a kula if it's a tzarech machar. If it's this special called tzarkai, it's like a double kula. It's like mamish. It's a mamish pashit. But the Be'er Halacha comes along, and the Be'er Halacha teaches us that makam hatzarech we can be mekel b'diavad, even if it's a special only kamechel ben dersai, even a bigger chiddush. Which really we see from here that the Mishnah Berurah, the Be'er Halacha, are really taking this Sif Zayin heter of Hatmanah having the same dinim as Shehiyah very far. That the Be'er Halacha is willing, even once it's a Mechel Ben Dersai, again, b'diavad b'shegeg, but that means he's allowing you to eat the food, to do the fact that it was in a matzah of Hatmanah. Ha'mais l'chayodim as well is Mekel, which is an important point. The Goyin is Machmir. The guy comes along and he chucks the Yeshemrim on his head. He says it's nircha. And, okay. So we're a little bit of like, I don't know. What's Lemais over here is a little bit funny. The Aruch HaShulchan is splitting up the Sifin. The Mishnah Berurah is willing to be Mekel. Definitely Makam HaTzairech. The Goyin is extremely Machmir. And I don't know. That's really where the sugya ends. There's not much more of a hachra over here. It would seem that the lechatchila, l'chayra, is to be machmir. That's what it would seem. That's what it would seem. What? No? That's what it would seem. It would seem that l'chatzchila here is to be machmer. I don't really have much more to add. I think when we go to the next shlav and we go into the world of the paiskim, as we'll see Ramesha v'chulu in a moment, it seems clear that they're starting with a little more of a chumrah. So let's go weiter.
Is the Arab going to end up being makel in any case, or just since he splits it into the Malchus Rishonim, there's no way to?
No, b'diavad he'll be makel. B'diavad he'll for sure be makel l'chayra. B'diavad he'll for sure be makel. I didn't see Rav Kiva. The creator his makel. So Ramesha comes along. So the same way that we're finding a heter l'tzerich machar, Ramesha wants to bump it up a little bit. And Ramesha wants to say that what if you did it in the morning for the nighttime? Is that going to be a similar amount of time? This is the Ramesha in Dalad and Dalad Beis. And says Ramesha, we don't find such a thing. Loy matzino a heter b'davar ma'asav avel afilu bizman mukdam tuva. He says, aside from the Yishayim in the Ramah, tzarech machar is no. Erev, Friday morning. That's what it's. That's again. I'm adding in those words, but if you don't add those words to Ramesha, I don't know how else you read it, because he says, loy matzinu she'moter b'davar ma'asav avel afilu bizman mukdam tuva. Only according to the Yishayimrim, tzarech machar moter lahatim b'davar ma'asav avel. So therefore he says, Im kim yish lahatir gam l'tzarech leila im hitmin babayker. So therefore he says, according to my math, what's wrong? You don't know, of course. But Ramesha is taking it to the next level. What's the problem with Mishnah Berurah? In what case? Yes, Ramesha, the Mishnah Berurah just says that once you're in the oifen of Hatmanah, it's going to be usher regardless of the time. That's what the Mishnah Berurah is teaching us. He doesn't care how early it is. Which, by the way, according to Mishnah Berurah, what about on Thursday? What about on Wednesday? Makes a difference? So we just said Friday morning just because that's the most normal case? I don't know. Maybe. But Ramesha explicitly walks in and he says, Yesh lahater gam l'tzarech laila im hitmin ba'bayker, according to the Yishayimim in the Ramah. He says the same Ramah that's going to be mekel l'tzarech machar, you can be mekel in the morning l'tzarech laila. But it's a das yachid, as we find in our Chashochan, ve'ein lasais zeh. B'diavad, he's willing to be mekel. So what do we see? So that comes along Ramesha, we see that he's not willing to be mekel on this das yishayimrim. Again, Lefida our Chashochan, he splits them in half. Lefida Mishnah Berurah, it's all one. But even Lefida Mishnah Berurah, he was only seemingly, the way the Ramesha is learning, he's only willing to be mekel b'diavad. But lechatchila, Ramesha is machmir. So that's really where I think part A of the sugya ends, which is that is one allowed to be mekel stam based on time? No. I think that's when you put Aleph and Zayin together and all the dust settles, and are you allowed to say in an oifen of lechatchila, can I go and say it's either v'shakal tarkai, or it's the tzarech machar, or it's ba'bayker to Laila? It would seem, again, the way Ramesha is teaching us how to learn up the sugya, it would seem one has to be machmir. That's I think shlav number one in the sugya, which. No, but again, let me just be clear. B'diavad, of course, we're going to be mekel. The Shayla is in an oifen of lichatchila. And it is definitely interesting that in the world of b'diavad, we're going very far. The Bir Allah is willing, and you're telling me Rav Kiva Eger is willing to be mekel, even if it's mechel ben dersai. But in an oifen of lichatchila, Ramesh is coming along, and he's saying that this yesh aimrim is nidcha. It's a das yachid, like the Aruch HaShulchan says. As the Aruch HaShulchan splits the two in half, that's only the sheet of the Rashbam, it's not the other Rishayim. And therefore, he's not willing to be mekel. I want to chuck the whole sugya. If you according to this, there's no sugya. Oh, according to this, you never have to worry about it. Why? Because when Shabbos begins, it's v'shakal tarkai. No. It's all Erev Shabbos. It's all Erev Shabbos. It's all Erev Shabbos. Yeah, I mean, Suvi definitely would be a case, and I mean, we're gonna have to handle how, again, within the whole Krakvat Sugya, a lot of these sugyas only start if there's a Shailav Atman. If there's no Shailav Atman on Erev Shabbos, then the whole thing doesn't start. But yeah, Nachanami. Seeing what other case would it be again? Well, we'll see in a minute. I think there are going to be more cases.
Again, and then again, there's even if you do it Thursday night or whatever.
We are going to see more cases as they're about to get involved in everything being wrapped up. Which you're right. Which again, let me. I want to. Rekatrin is pointing out a very very important akuda, which is that even if you're going to be machmir, he's pointing out that this chumrah is not going to really come back to bite you, which is the chayr true. That even if we're going to be machmir over here, lemaisa, the bulk of our Hatmanah shaylas are all going to be on Shabbos. That's going to be our shaylas, l'chayr, as we'll see in a moment. I mean, tell you how you're going to learn to wrap up your kugel and your challah, right? Because if you're going to learn to wrap up your kugel and your challah, it's going to be a problem to put wrap 3 layers of foil on it. Then l'chayr, without this first half of the year, you don't have your overnight kugel and Shabbos. And if you want to know what's the story with your pastrami, if you're going to be machmir, the fact that it's sitting inside your challah, then the same thing. So this would have been a way to avoid everything. Okay, that's part A. We move on to part B, which is, as we just opened up the floor, which is how do we deal with wrappings on Shabbos? Everyone here, I think, already saw a Maisha, which is the third Mishuva. Many already saw a Falk. And then there's a Har Tzvi, very famous Har Tzvi as well, which if you didn't see is required reading by the neighbors tonight, which is in Arachayim, Chelik Aleph. I have no clue what this is. I'm just reading what it says over here. Every day, Vasal Miyad of Sefer Kunchis Tal Harim Lechem Avishal Ice Hay. He's a separate sefer in the back. Oh shoot!
We should still read it.
Yes. If you stare at the nearest, they'll see. Okay. Tell her, yeah. Tell her. Okay. Tonight's Shabbos. Okay. I have no clue what's going on over here. I'm going to continue. Says the Hilga Har Tzvi. The case of Har Tzvi is you have a pot. Let's call it a chalent. Are you allowed to place Bein Tapuchei Adama Kofsa, a package, Shemal'a Ize Meichel? We'll call this a wrapped up kugel inside your chalent. So I have a chalent cooking, and I want as well, I want to put a potato in. I want to wrap up a potato and put it in my chalent. Wrap up sweet potato, people do actually. Seems like it's somewhat common. I don't know if it's common or not, but it seems that's what people do. Are you allowed to do that? And they're going to cook together. So do we say that, let's use a case of a sweet potato wrapped in a foil inside my chalent. Do we say that the sweet potato is ba'ifin hatmanah, and it's usher because it's fully submerged b'davar ha'maisiv hevel? Okay, do we all have the case? Let's just get the case clear so we don't argue about what the case is. I have a chalent. Let's forget the chalent. I'm going to make it even simpler. It's fully. Again. We're going to. Again. What needs or what doesn't need? We're going to go into the case of the Har Tzvi because he has very unique hatirim. So let's handle his case. Let's go to a pot on a flame with chalent inside of it, which is beans, meat, and potatoes. And I want to, the case is an ish, and I want to take a sweet potato. Thank you, at the end of it. Thank you. Bishul, ice, hey. You wrap up the sweet potato, and you put it all the way inside your chalent. Is this a shaila of Hatmanah or not? Okay, we're all on the same page. This is a Har Tzvi's tshuva. Says the Har Tzvi, it's not Hatmanah. Why is it not Hatmanah? He says, Kol kedera hi ka'achas. It's all one pot of food. Ve'ein kan ela shehiyah shel kedera achas. All you're doing is you're making a matzav of shehiyah of one pot. This is very similar to the way the Chazon Ish says it that we'll get to. Very similar way the Chazon Ish says it. And Zakta Hartzvi, what about the case of the sealing shel mayim of the cold water that's going into Tveria? He says no, because over there the sealing shel mayim is Hatmanah becham. Aval, and I want to read you 4 lines of the Hartzvi. Benida didan, harikol akadira Hatmanah achasi. Now don't get confused. The word Hatmanah doesn't mean usser. It's all ba'oifen. What's the literal translation of Hatmanah? Wrapped, insulated. Okay. V'loi shayich loymar shakuvsa mutmenes b'davar ha'meisav hevel. It's not shaykh to say that our sweet potato that's wrapped up is mutmam b'davar ha'meisav hevel. Why? Tibe'emes havtav shil einoi mechamim es hakufsa. The food does not warm up the potato. Ella koyach ha'ish shemechamim es hatavshilin. The flame that heats up the food, mechamim gam es hakufsa, heats up the sweet potato. V'chol akadira atmana achasi v'chulu ad kan teikif hadvar. A Meiridika tshuva of Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank. I'm not going to try to say where he's the Rav from, but there we go. There we go. The eulogy will come later. When you look at a pot and I see food, now we all could translate this into our brain to our chalents with our kugel wrapped up. Zogta Tzvi, nothing to do with, and he's going to go weiter, that the taste, nothing to do with anything. What is heating up my sweet potato? Not the food. The ishes. That's what he says. Yes, you have a question before we go weiter?
This heter is for Erev Shabbos, so he's not saying it's not considered mutma.
Whoa. You want to stick it in on Shabbos?
I'm saying this
No.
heter is for Erev Shabbos.
Of course.
So you were saying even roll a chazara. It's on, let's say potato on the flame, but put it into the pot now.
Right, chas v'shalom.
If it is on Torah, it's not by certain level, you can't do it on Shabbos.
Yeah, chas v'shalom. Yeah. Okay, I'm saying you want to be a deek the other way. Maybe. I didn't say you could or you cannot. It's not what he's talking about. I said chas v'shalom. It's not what he's talking about.
Right.
That's not what he's talking about. Well, maybe we'll get there. Maybe we won't. Right? Flam is being a raya from the Hartzvi that you can't put the potato. If I have a potato sitting on a flame and I want to say it's chazara, I have all my 5 tanayim, and instead of putting it on top of my crock pot, I want to stick it into the chalant. He wants to bring a raya that it's aser. Why? Because it's called hatmanah b'davar she'enoi meisav hevel, which is aser and chops. That was Rabbi Flam's raya from the Hartzvi. Is that what your raya was? Beautiful. Because that's what he says. Yeah. Again, I'm not arguing with Rabbi Flam's diuk. You can argue Rabbi Flam's diuk. I didn't say anything. You can argue with him. Like that with me. I'm not talking about the case right now. No, we're jumping. I'm being the translator from Rabbi Flam. What?
You agree to my flowers?
I'm not up to that nekuda. I don't want to weigh in on that nekuda. It's a world war. The Paiskim weighed in on that nekuda. So Flam is one of the Paiskim is weighing in. I am not. Okay, so he's arguing and he's saying it is called one thing. Guys, fight. I'm not doing this.
There's one there, so then the container itself is also Hatmanah.
Yeah, you have to see the tshuva properly. I'm saying there's a very good shayla, but I'm not willing to weigh in on that shayla at the moment. Now, l'chayra, we have a raya to Tzvi from the Mishnah Berurah himself. Because Shulchan Aruch says, Mutar la'aniach, this is, you didn't see this yet, it's in Reish Nun Ches, but you kept on seeing a reference. B'bariyon klishish b'davar kar gabe kedei rechama. Zok the Mishnah Berurah over there in Sivkat and Beis, even if you cover it with begadim, that kedei re'im lahevel machmas atzma. V'adrab kol shabachem misamayid v'haylech. And therefore, it's not Hatmanah Devar Moisel Shari. Why? Because it's all coming from the flame of the need. I don't want to get involved in that with the Mishnah Berurah. Lamaisa, it is important to know the Pri Megadim argues. Pri Megadim over there argues. The Ishla of Rab Sikvat and Aleph in Reish Nun Ches. As soon as you see Reish Nun Ches, you'll see that Pri Megadim, and you'll handle whether it is or is not a raya. And We'll leave it at that. Let's see. We'll see. And whether this Har Tzvi is predicated on what the Machaber says in Reish Nuches or not, Yesh Lachalik perhaps or not. Lamaisa comes along the Heilig of Shem Zalman Arbach. Shem Zalman is in Parak Aleph, Halacha Pei Vav and Pei Zayin. Comes along with Shem Zalman, and he says that the only time you can have Hatmanah is if you utilize Kalim, Karim, Shmichot, right? Simichot. Okay, got it right. Baruch Hashem. Chetzbai. Zag the Heilige Rebbe, Oy im yatin bezes Kalim ele divrei amecha she'ina nesunim bekli. Oy im yat oicha shebekli b'teicha oichel cham. Aval ein iser atmana b'hatmana as oichel b'teich oichel acher. There's no atmana, no iser atmana with one food the next. Motor lahachlis b'boid yoim sakit im oirez. He says, I'll go for the gold like Rosh Zalman. I want to take, and granted this case is a very, very telling case. I want to take a bag of rice. I think people actually do this. I think. And I want to put it into the soup. Shal gabi aish. And now it's going to have a mayrdika maifis that the rice is going to cook from the liquid of the soup. And now I'm going to have two things. I'm going to have soup and rice. They're both going to be hot. Ella derech bishel. Which, by the way, that might be the answer to your quabble that you were both having, that maybe you're both right or you're both wrong. Maybe it isn't Hatmanah, but maybe it's still a problem because it's bishel. Maybe not. We're not. Maybe not. Maybe yeah, exactly. That was part of your fight. I'm not getting involved. That's why you have to see how the place can take it to the next level. But Klape Erev Shabbos, which is what we're talking about, it's going to be mutter. It's going to be mutter. That is that a subi? What do you mean?
Is cooking something in water designed to cook, which isn't clean? It's technically a food.
Kolshkin. You're saying it should be a kolshkin to the subi? No. Not kolshkin. I don't know. I'm not up to there yet. Says there's some Zalman Viter. Similarly, you could wrap up your kugel with aluminum foil, and you could take it and put it inside your chalent, and you could put it fully submerged in the chalent or into your soup that's on top of the fire, and there's no iser atmana. V'yachalasis kain afilu, and he spells out explicitly to come to counter the naysayers. Imakisu shalem liloy nikavim. You don't have to start making holes in your kugel to let the time go through. Zakta Rebbe Nain. You're allowed to have it fully wrapped into your chalent. Hari nechshav lishnei mine oichlin. Two types of food. Shemis chamimim b'shabbos ala eish, and there is no problem. Mayridika tshuva of Rosh Zalman.
The same deal we made for like there too, because you said it's that are
yeah. That what?
Meaning that's the hard sleeve. It's not
Chayr. The Chayr, it sounds like he's saying something very similar. In the Ha'ar over there, in Har Reish Nandala 254, he writes, and this is where things start getting a little bit gray. Because so far we have not yet discussed why you're doing anything. So far, everything we've spoken about, the Har Tzvi, Rosh Zalman, was it's a food in a food, and Zog to them, it's a food in a food, it's called food. Food in food is called food, and you don't have to worry about anything. The question now is going to be, what is your kavana? What is your kavana? And what your kavana is, now we're going to go to the next level, which Eileen here was trying to jump a few moments ago. And the next level is going to be, what are you allowed to do on Shabbos? Which that is going to have more to do with kavana. Zog the Rebbe, Rosh Zalman. Dim kavanasai kshemachnes miboid yoyim esakokol ben yar aluminum l'teicha marak. What are you thinking? Kedei shaloi tit poirer amachmas abishol. You don't want it to fall apart. Then ein ze derech hatmanah. He says you're putting it in. You don't want it to fall apart. That's why you wrapped it up. V'chein, yes, miboid yoyim. V'chein mutter latev legamri zakokol ben yar aluminum l'nechavilu b'shabis al gabe michsa shel kedeira. So now he translates this and says, what could I do on Shabbos? I can wrap up my kugel, put it on top of the pot, shal gabi aish, b'tenai. Avad the kugel is mavush called zarkai. Ve'kol kavanasei shalo yitpoirer. And what's my kavana? That it doesn't fall apart. And what's his raya? Sif beis. Mutter lahatan afilu b'shavas davishina mosef hevel. Im kavanasei rak lishma min achbarim. And how you learn up that line in Sif beis, of course, is the World War. That we'll see Ramesher, the Chazanish, etc. Says the Shem Zalman, who are dynamic, Shekavanasa, Shleis Parim, Mashim Seich, Niyar Aluminum. therefore it's going to be mutter. So Shlomo Zalman sounds like he's being very machmir, actually, not mekel, if you're listening very carefully. Because he's learning it's only going to have a heter if you're kavana, you're thinking l'shem yichod, I don't want the kugel to fall apart. Comes along Moshe Feinstein, Daled Ayin Daled, and then as well, of course, an Aleph Sadi Hey. No, nothing, anything to do with the lumen fall. That to do with that you're wrapping it up so it doesn't fall apart. That is what Rosh Zalman said. Very not liberal.
Can we say about drawing based on that?
Yes, 100%. 100%. If your kavana is, and we'll see, the Paiskim speak out what you just said, is that it's a kavana not for heat. It's kavana it doesn't fall apart. It's kavana it doesn't get dirty. It's kavana it doesn't dry out. Those are all kavanas, not l'shem hatmana. That will all be fine. But the moment you have a dual kavana, which almost always is the case, because you also want it to get hot, he didn't talk about it yet. He didn't say anything yet. He didn't say anything. I'm trying to point out what we did say and what we didn't say and what everyone is trying to make the Paiskim say like they didn't say. But says Ramesha, to wrap up in aluminum, Mederach Hatmanah, Nira da Aser, he starts off in Daled Ayin Daled. Dana Mechalik, Benatifa Benir Aluminum, Rakdi Lachamim is like Kugel, Benatifa Shabal Lishmar al Shleimuta Shletis Barer. So the first tshuva in Ramesha Daled Ayin Daled, it sounds like he's very machmir. But then it comes like Ramesha earlier, not later, in Al Sadihei, and he does create this chalik. He creates a chalik like Shlomo Zalman. It depends why you are covering it, why you're covering it. And what if you're using many layers? Be careful what many layers means. As Rafalik very famously, maybe we'll get to, is machalik. But many layers meaning I take 5 layers together and I wrap with it. Zakar Shlomo Zalman, he quotes Shal Shuvas Machsa Avram, whom is, thank you, I don't either. I was going to guess, but I was going to be wrong. So that says Shlomo Zalman, B'Shem the Machsa Avram, Shlomo Zalman, the Ara B'Shem the Machsa Avram, he says it's all called Shem Kisoy Echad Hu. And only if you have one layer and then another layer, it's a problem. So at the moment, how far is our heter gone? Let's go in order. How far do we have a heter so far? We have one case of heter. If I'm covering something, l'shem, in not falling apart. That's the one, or l'shem, a non-heat kavana. That's the one explicit heter we have in the Paiskim, with one layer of foil, or with multiple singular layers, meaning if they're all together and then wrapping it together. That is how Shlomo Zalman and Ramesha learn.
One long piece?
No, if I take 5 pieces and I wrap it azai, that's going to be called one layer, says Shlomo Zalman. Masha Ein Kain, if I keep on wrapping it in, this is how Rafalk learns, that we'll get to in a moment, then he learns that's called multiple layers. He might learn that it's mutter, but he learns it's called multiple layers. We'll get to slowly. Shlomo Zalman says, "Nach, if mechase bekama shchvot shel niyar l'shem shemira ala chomesh arinon the shem kisui echad." If it's all together, it's all called one kisui. So, now how to do the math over here? I'm a little bit confused. I'm a little bit confused how you do the math over here, because Lefi the Har Tzvi that we started with, it sounds like he doesn't care at all about kavana, right? Sounds like Lefi the Har Tzvi, everything's mutter. Sounds like Lefi the Har Tzvi, it's all called a food, and therefore it's mutter. Now, it's not going to help you necessarily for on Shabbos, but Erev Shabbos, the Har Tzvi doesn't care. It's wrapped 100 times, it's wrapped 1 time. Har Tzvi doesn't care. You put it in bedafka for heat. You put it in for it doesn't fall apart. Har Tzvi is going to be mekel. Shlomo Zalman was one that came along, and he started splitting hairs. The Shlomo Zalman wanted to say that no, it's only if you have kavana for it doesn't to fall apart, because if not, then it is called Hatmanah. Meaning Shlomo Zalman created the Isra Hatmanah over here, which according to the Har Tzvi didn't exist. Yeah.
What's the case? You know, talking about Erev Shabbos. We're on Shabbos, and he's calling it Hatmanah. When it's Hatmanah, it's also because in Shabbos, also your name is that. You said we're talking about the same.
No, well, the fear of Zalman, just do the math the other way. The fear of Zalman, if you take that kugel and you stuff it inside, he said it's only mutter if you're doing it so it doesn't fall apart. On Erev Shabbos, he's talking about. If you have your case, if you're a kugel and you're a chalon on Erev Shabbos, label the heter. The heter is food. For your Shem Zalman, the heter is kavana, that it doesn't fall apart. Now, you want to know the other way, and that's the point I'm confused about, is the Hartzvi, what does he say about the other way, which is going to help us on Shabbos? I don't know, but I do know that the Hartzvi, that once I'm putting something in, a food, I don't have to start thinking about anything on Erev Shabbos.
14 layers of foil?
Yeah, Hartzvi doesn't care. It's food and a food.
That's not his case, though.
It's food and a food. Yeah, no, he doesn't call it atona b'chlal. So again,
I'm saying he's going to be masculine if you wrap something in foil. That's
Not putting it in food.
I'm not.
what was it? I was listening.
It's addressing a different point. No, he's just saying.
Again, let's say what we have clarity before we move to the next level. The next level is really where everything's going to blow up, which is where Ramosha comes in and Rafalk and everyone is going to really pull everything together. But I think we have clarity is that if it's Erev Shabbos and you have a food and a food, it's mutter. Why is it mutter? One of two reasons. Either it's mutter because it's a food and a food, or it's mutter because you don't want it to fall apart.
Food means what?
That's the hard cheese heter. Kol. No, it is Meisav Hevel. The food's not Meisav Hevel. The ish is Meisav Hevel.
This is called Hatmanah, but ain't it Meisav Hevel?
Yes. Again, you're trying to say the next level. We have to get to that case. I don't know. On Erev Shabbos. Correct. On Shabbos, if I want to go and I want to put my kugel on top of my chalent and I want to keep it fully wrapped, I want to put my chal on top of my crack pot, I want to keep it fully wrapped. So far, and don't worry, this is about to, we're going to take this to the next level in a moment. But so far, what have we seen? It's only mutter if I'm doing it l'shem, what? Not falling apart, not drying out, not getting dirty, or things like that. But if I'm wrapping it to get hotter, or also to get hotter, which I think is the mitzias, I think that's usually what we're thinking, that when I take my kugel out of the fridge and I plop it out of the pan into a foil and I wrap it up and I put it on top of the crock pot. If you ask, why did I just wrap it up? You wrapped it because you wanted to get hot. That's you wrapped it up. Maybe you also care that it's not going to fall apart and things like that. But that case, so far, I don't think we have any heter. Does anyone agree or disagree at the moment? Don't tell me if you agree. I don't care. Does anyone disagree at the moment? I'm saying in a normal case, on Shabbos morning, when you go and you wrap up your food and you put it on top of the crock pot, what is your kavanah at that moment? So so far what we've learned is, if your kavanah is dafka for a non-heating purpose, it's going to be mutter. But if your kavanah is for heating purpose, also for heating purpose, we have not yet together seen a heter. Oh, wait, we didn't speak it. From what I just laid out the table in front of us, the Har Tzvi, Ramosha, Rav Shem Zalman, we haven't seen a heter. So let's now try to go a little deeper into Sif Beis. That's what you're asking. Let's go a little bit deeper into Sif Beis. Let's go a little bit deeper into Sif Beis, and let's go right now. So here we go. So, which is dual kavanah. That's what we have to figure out. How do you learn Sif Beis? That is the question. Sif Beis says you're covering it up to Shem from the Achbarim. What happens if you have two kavanas? So the Mishmur of Katani Gimel says, why is it mutter? So the question is, how do we learn this Mishnah Berurah? How do we learn Sif Beis? And this is where Rafalk comes along. And Rafalk says, let's learn this Mishnah Berurah very, very carefully. So what does Mishnah Berurah sound like? When is it mutter? If you're doing it, if your kavanah is only to guard the food. But if your kavanah is for both reasons, what does the Mishnah Berurah sound like in Sifkatan Yud Gimel? Which way? Both. Yud Gimel and Yidal. It doesn't start Yud Gimel? Yud Gimel and Yidal, no? Yud Gimel. Asad Mikol Makom B'Diavad Shari. Oh, Yudalid is the diak. Okay, yeah, thank you. Yudalid, thank you. What is he telling in Yudalid? Aser. Aruch HaShulchan as well. in Ois Yod.
He sounds because it's only 8 days and you having them scheme with her.
No, because that only because your kavana is to be shomer from the achvarim. But now, if I have two kavanas, it sounds like it's going to be a problem. Aruch HaShulchan says the same thing. Aruch HaShulchan in Sif Yud says, if the kisu is einoy l'shem atmana, ella kedei l'shamar min achvarim, then it's mutter. Which, by the way, I think any normal person, you learn Sif Beis before you start learning any paiskim. The normal way. I'm not saying the paiskim are not normal, but I'm saying before we get to chedushim, the normal way to learning is that, yeah, if I cover my pot so something doesn't fall into it. But now you try to explain to your wife that, yeah, you're allowed to fully wrap up the challah. You know why? Because a fly might fall on top of the challah. What are you crazy? There's no fly falling on the challah. So what case is Negea? We don't have that in text. Do we have that in text? No.
The point is that it's not.
Who said so? Drying out is a big chiddush. How do you quantify drying out? Because drying out is a heating property. It's not an external property. These are external properties. These are something from the outside coming to harm your food. Why do I cover my soup? I cover my soup so that it heats up faster. Oh, also because something might fall into it. No, it's not why I'm covering my soup. I'm covering my soup so that it heats up faster. Why am I wrapping up my challah so that it heats up faster? Not because, this time I drip on it. Now, drying out, it might be a good svara, but the Aruch HaShulchan and the Mishnah Berurah both seem to conclusively say that if I'm doing it also because I want the heat, it should be a problem. That is and by the way, even if you're doing it not to dry out, you also want the heat also. So you're doing it for both reasons. So it still should be a problem. No, I'm saying my argument is two reasons. No, and that's the Svaratic argument. The diaktic argument is when we go in Mishnah Berurah, the Mishnah Berurah is klar, it's only mutter because, good, thank you. Now,
Maybe you'll have it on service.
Lamaisa, Rafalk holds what? We all know. What is Rafalk called? Falk is Mekel over here. Falk is Mekel over here. And the question is why? Rafalk is a Mishnah Berurah purist, as they say. And yet, he is the Baal Shita that is Mekel over here. And as well, Ramesha is also going to be Mekel in his famous Thermis Tshuva. So what is the heter over here? Because again, if we stop before we get to the next level of the Paiskim, I think in every single one of our cases we have to be Machmir. And then what we say is, no, it's not that's such a big deal. Just do Hatmanah b'mixas. What do? Is you open up the corner of the chal. You can fully wrap the chal, you put on top of the crack, but then open up the corner. And I believe that is the normal way of learning Mishnah Berurah without any Paiskim. Before Dershu put the Paiskim on this side of the page, when you finish the Mishnah Berurah, this is what you think. You want to take your kogel and you want to put it on top of the thing, you open up the corner. And by the way, many people, when you give shirim about doing the Sina L'Chatchila on Shabbos, you end off with one asterisk, which is, by the way, always keep the food a little bit uncovered, which doesn't hurt. And by the way, it gets all your heat and you don't really have any problems and it's still not going to dry out and it's fine. Yeah, it makes crusty better.
It's gonna make it not soft.
Make that soggy, okay. Well, the Maisa, that's how many people do it. But let's so we really could end there and that's fine. But let's go a little bit deeper.
Even assuming the shaila even starts with like a regular thing that's let's say a regular 9x13 that's fully covered with layer on top. Is even the feet
Saying because there's air in between?
because you have it out the sides.
Why is it the sides? It's fully
It's the sides of the
no.
before a fall. Is the sides of the pot there also?
Again, if you mean to say is air, but before you get to air, if I take my cup like this and I cover like this, my tea is mutman. Now, if this was beyond a flame, there'd be a problem on Shabbos. That would something you have to ask Akasha. No, I that's the next level. But Mr. Brewer, you saw that? Which, by the way, Mr. Brewer, you should just ask Akasha, how you let to keep your soup cooking going to Shabbos? Why is that not to everyone's level? Here's my soup pot. It's on a flame and it's covered. Is that not to everyone's level on a Friday? So it's optimistic. So l'chayra, Sif Bey says, it is. but it's mutter because you're trying to prevent things from falling into it. That's what it sounds like before the paiskim. Comes in Ramesha, and Ramesha in his famous Thermos Tshuva, Aleph Sadihei, comes in Ramesha and he says that it's mutter for another reason. And if you read it carefully, you see something amazing. Says Ramesha. I think this is a direct quote of his words. I think. Tamasha mutter shenaisi attached to a thermos. Adayin lo edifa mikli acher. V'rak b'masha seisim acher kachas pia b'kiso yoyim lekach. What's the chap of a thermos? The way Ramesha learned it, which I don't know if the scientists agree, is it's not that the walls of the thermos are your double-sealed walls. It's like Ramesha, the walls lo edifa mikli acher. Only afterwards, when you come and you put on the special cover? No.
And as much as it's open, it's useless. Not that the walls aren't.
First of all,
Loi adifa mikli acher. How do you read those words?
because it's still open.
Yeah. But not that the walls aren't better than other clean. They are better than just as much as open, it's not going to help you.
I think you're writing a different Ramesha than I have.
That's what the thermos is, not just the cover. So when you have the cover with the walls, it completes its thermal.
You put that cover on a regular cup,
Hey,
it's the same thing.
I don't believe you're reading the tshuva properly. I think you have a sledgehammer in Ramesha.
Ramesha would not tell you that it would keep in the heat.
Loi adifa mikli acher. I don't.
That's
I
what
don't
it's open.
While it's open. No, I don't have those words.
Well,
Okay, we can argue about this. I don't think it really makes an afkamina. I happen to personally have read the tshuva otherwise, but I don't think it makes sense. That's what we're going to say. Says Ramesha, "V'rak b'masha says machas bia mekisa imlikach ubezeh." There's no iser. Why is there no iser? Because the mutter lechasek deir af b'shabbos kivush is derech shmiras adarm. It's the derech shmiras advar. That's the chiddush of Ramesha. Gam mekama devarim kamosh liyishbach v'shlo yipol afrures uzvu v'chtam av shegam mishamer achoyim. Avad also is mishamer the chayim, but says Ramesha, it's the derech of a shmiras hadavar. Therefore, says Ramesha, it's going to be mutter. And Ramesha himself spells out, the Mishnah Berurah writes, the shari kivin she'ein machavin lazeh. So why did the Mishnah Berurah have to say that? He had to say that is because kisu b'dvarim shaloi nasa lekach. I'm going to take a chiddush of Ramesha. Because Mishnah Berurah is talking about what's the case. You're putting a smicha on top of it. You're putting karim on top of it. But if you're using a pot cover, if you're using a thermos cover, covers are always allowed. A beautiful chiddush of a goyin gadol, Ramesha Feinstein. And therefore, if you're miskavin, that's where the Mishnah Berurah has to say it's only if you don't have kavanah. But b'noisi kisem yud lekli mutter b'chol oifen af shekavanasai gam lahamid achoim kivin shakopanim zarach lechsoisai gam b'shvil shel yishafech l'doim, because you also need to cover it because it doesn't spell. Ramesh then is medayik it in the lashon of Shulchan Aruch, and he says akisu yam yuchel lekli is mutter b'chol oifen is always going to be mutter. I don't know. That's what he just said.
Why would it be different if you make your own cover? Because making your own cover would still allow it to spill.
I'm not understanding your question.
Why do you say that there's a built-in dual purpose? A cover that's made for you cover with your own thing. It's not.
The way it's called a cover.
What's the difference? What do you call
I was not understanding the question.
Well, the Mishnah Berurah, he read back to the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah was saying that you only have to have a single kavanah.
All right.
Kavanah is not a kisah miyuchad.
Right.
So
And if it's kisum yuchad, then it works.
so it's not like if let's say you decided that your kisah and miyuchad was also to help it not spell, then what's the hell?
That's not a kisum yuchad. I don't understand the conversation.
And
That it's a kisum yuchad.
therefore, in English, what's
That it's a cover that's specified for the keli.
And if there's which benefit? Would that be much
What?
regardless of your das? Whereas if you did it with your own cover, your das actually makes a difference.
Am I missing something?
cover is always a cover. Like it's not a cover until you give it kavanah. So you're asking a smart. What's a smart?
I don't know. I know what Ramesh says that a kisim yuchad is a kli for it. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't. I don't. I don't know. I don't know.
Why is it Moshe Machalik?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to plead the fifth because I feel like there's a lot of diburim that I'm walking into hotbed over here. So I'm going to plead the fifth because and we could hack it afterwards. We have to afterwards.
If
Um,
I come to my own,
Yeah.
and I read the mission where I say, oh, but he's only talking about Begadim, then not Milchaka.
Yeah.
But Kisub Milchaka is the Savior. That's Mechetis.
correct.
So that's what he's asking.
But when your name is Feinstein, I don't ask me.
That's
And if your name was Feinstein and you were my koil, I would be so proud of myself. Ooh, wow. Can you imagine? I got Feinstein in my koil. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I think he covered. I think he. Yeah, right there. Now, there's an incredible nikud over here. It's incredible nikud over here. Running out of time, which is what happened to psik resha? What happened to psik resha? We know psik resha is aser. So how in the world could this be mutter? How could this be mutter? It's a psik resha on hamadas chaim. All your fancy tires, Feinstein, Ramesha, how could this all be mutter? Just use halachic terminology. It's a psik resha on an iser hatmanah. Okay, I don't have a clue what you just said because the way you just said there's no psik resha because there's no psik resha, but it's a psik resha, therefore it's a problem. So Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach says a earth-shattering idea. Earth-shattering. I have no clue what to do with this. No clue. But when you have no clue what to do with it, you share, right? Because what happens when you have we share your daigas? What's the Maimer Chazal? Thank you. So Shlomo Zalman in the Mavui. Now the Mavui that we always reference as the official, when you don't understand something, you quote the Mavui. Because here he lays down the klalim with like every sugya in the Gans Shas. So in the Mavui, in Parak Aleph, in Klalim Lach Shabbos, he discusses Psik Resha and Issa D'Rabbanan, which is our case. And he says Psik Resha is D'Rabbanan is Aser. But then he says, in Ha'ara Nun Hey, after lots of sources, the very, very end of Ha'ara Nun Hey, he says, Ube Isser Kal D'Rabbanan, Sharinon Psik Resha. Umashma af denichole. Simin Reish Nun Zayin Sif Beis Mishnah Berurah Sif Katan Yudalid. He wants to learn that even in the Mishnah Berurah over here, where we were maybe being machalik and saying that if you're a Moshe, not Moshe, but to the Mishnah Berurah, because our Moshe is being machalik between different types of covers. But Lamaisa, what do we do with the fact that it's Pesach even the world of Ramesh? So I think there might be another answer. But before we get to other Lomdisha Terutzim, the Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach wants to tell you that an Isser Kal D'Rabbanan is mutter in a Oifim Psik Resha. And he quotes Yudalid. Because when you look at Yudalid, he says, and afilu begadish amidim izchem ekder shleitz tanin, afilu hachi shari ki ina mechavin lezeh. So even when you're being mechavein, not for that, in the case of your smichot and your karim and your other covers, it's a psik resha, which I think we could ask the same kasha on Ramesh. Maybe yeah, maybe no. We could argue on that point. But if Shlomo Zalman is telling this in the Mishnah Berurah, he's saying it's mutter because in Isser Kal D'Rabbanan we're making psik resha. Now, what's called an Isser Kal D'Rabbanan? I don't know. When your name is Arbach, I don't know. I don't know. No, it's only on Ma'aseh Shabbos. Only on Ma'aseh Shabbos. Remember Machmer. Ma'aseh Shabbos. Ma'aseh Shabbos. We're not handling Ma'aseh Shabbos here. Here we're handling the etzem halacha. Etzem halacha. I don't believe in etzem halacha. We're more Machmer. I don't think so. They're more safeguards. Maybe. Yeah. They're more safe. That's Ma'aseh Shabbos. You can't eat it. It's Ma'aseh Shabbos. There's more safeguards. True. Again, I don't really know what to do with Shlomo Zalman, but
Why can't you just say the whole Rabbanan is just out of the Shemesh? Once you know the Shemesh, psik resha wouldn't be a help.
because you just argued on psik resha. You're not allowed to do that. Chazal said psik resha is aser, even though there's no chashash, doesn't make a difference. No. Of course, psik resha is aser. if it's happening, if it's happening, it happened. It got heat because of the heat. It got hot because of the heat. No, even the Rabbanan. Segregation Rabbanan is also. Klal. Biggest mistake in all of halacha ever is, just a segregation. So what? We're machaber segregation. Segregation trades Rabbanan ulay. I'm sure, start handling your Mishnah Buras with your flies and pir halachas, and even there, it's not even pasha to be making a trade Rabbanan. And by the way, and as Rosh Hashanah says, it's nichale over here, which makes it much worse. So, I wasn't listening. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I mean, even without, I'm asking what you're saying. I mean, even without the segregation is also. I'm saying you're just making it worse. He's making it a circle. Oh, you want to know how is it a circle? I don't know. I have no clue. I have no clue. I wasn't like joking when I said I have no clue. I have no clue. I have no clue. I have absolutely no clue. I have no clue. But by the way, within the Ramesha, Ramesha is Meramis, this whole Shmuz Bab Sikresha, towards the end over there. Ramesha does say that yeah, I think within the world of the Mishnah Brura, he's Ramzat. Okay. Now, but let's just circle around. Let's just circle around. We have a lot of things flying over here. Let's circle around and we'll end with Rafal. So again, we'll mention in a minute because that's 3 names and 4 faces and you call it a day. But in the Lamdas Hadavar, what comes out over here is as follows. The Fidah Ben Ramosha is learning the Mishnah Brura, which, he's Ramosha, so he wins. Whatever his svara is, and we could handle a svara. A kisui miyuchad lekach is always going to be mutter, irregardless of why you're putting it on. And you want to know, is a foil kisui miyuchad lekach? Many places can hold yes, so let's just go with that. And we'll go with Rafalk in a moment, and we'll discuss Rafalk even deeper in a minute, why he has his whole svara to be mekel. But because of that, Ramesha is machalik between that and the Mishnah Brura, and therefore it's going to be mutter. Now, within the world of the Mishnah Brura, we have a problem with Psik Reisha. Rosh Zalman has a fascinating teretz that's in Isser Kal. Can you ask this kasha on Ramesha? I don't know. As Rekatz and I made fun of what you answered, but maybe it actually is the MS, which is that maybe Lafi Ramesha, you can't ask that it's a Psik Reisha, because his whole vart is that a kisim yudel chalikach is a. Now you just have to say fancy lumdus. Okay, you said one fancy lumdus. So everyone can say their own fancy lumdus. Why it's not in the sugya, right? But yeah, because it would seem clear. First of all, you have to see. I think because in Ramesh, I think he's Meramis the Mishnah Buras and has the issue in the world of the Mishnah Bura, and he's trying to be machalik from the world of the Mishnah Bura. That's number one in diuk. But even without diuk, Ramesh's whole vart is that you're not in the sugya. So it's hard to ask segregation, which I know that's what you said, and I made fun of it. I do believe that you are correct. And I just said that, Barabim. Can you imagine that? On camera. I do believe that you are correct, and we just have to figure out how to say the right lumbus. But I do believe that is the Metzias. Now, I do want to point out that I think there's a terrible and now basically to end off, I in Shaman Rafal's married to Ketchuva, and he basically hits equals, and he says every kli now gets one covering. That's how he translates this whole sugya. And he says, "All kisim yuchlekach" just means that you're allowed to cover your food. So how am I allowed to cover my food? Every food gets a cover. So foil, I don't even know if he has to even go into a fancy lumdus of foil, dik lumdus. That foil is a morphing, what's the word? That it morphs into whatever it is, and therefore it automatically gets the kisim yuchlekach. Rafal doesn't mean to say that. He says every food gets a cover. So your first cover, is free, we'll call it. But I think this is a terrible mistake that often people make. And this mamish is also, I think l'chol hashitas chol is the following case. You take out your food from the fridge Shabbos morning. Your schnitzel, your grilled chicken, your dry meat, your kugel, and it's wrapped up in foil. Great. So now what do? What you do is you take your 9x13 on top of your crock pot and you just dump all your little foil guys inside there. Great. Everything's mutter so far, right? Yes. But then, foil is allowed. The rabbi said you could always have a cover. So then you put a piece of foil over the entire 9x13. That is 100% usher, and I don't believe you can eat any of the food. Did everyone get the case I just said? It's not a chiddush. I just said equals in a way that I don't know if we necessarily compute. If this is my 9x13 on top of my chalent, yeah, this is my 9x13, not while it's hot. Not while it's hot. Not while it's hot. If you're over in that one of Devar Meishevel, a month of Devar Meishevel, Devar Ina Meishevel. Hatmanah b'Devar Meishevel, you're over on Shabbos, you can eat the food while it's hot. Okay, you know what? Good. Let's not get stuck. Whatever I just said, question mark. We'll get back to there. I don't care about eating the food or not. I actually think you can't, but maybe I'm wrong. Could be. Yeah. That's Erev Shabbos he's talking about. I'm talking about on Shabbos. Tell me you did Hatmanah b'Davar Meisav Hebel on Shabbos. We're going over time. The extra minute is in you now. I'm just letting you know. Okay, we'll get back here. Either way, all I was just pointing out is that when you take up your wrap the foil, that every kli gets one kli, and you put it on top of your 9x13, and then you cover the whole thing. You now just put two covers on your thing. It's not included in your rafal. They two covers is one cover, some zalman. There, it's a food in a cover with another cover around it. I believe that is a problem, and that is something that you certainly have to be mindful of. In a similar vein, if you go and you put your, that fancy blanket that says L'Kavod Shabbos Kodesh, and you thought that it's made for Shabbos day, and your food is already wrapped in foil, then you go and you cover it. That also is aser. Now you want to know if you could get out of this whole shmooze by calling an atmana b'mixas, meaning that part of it is not mutman. That's going to be dependent on the scenario. But grada, if you take a piece of foil over the 9x13 and you fully enfoil it, that was in English. Then what? No, even if it's not jam-packed. Even if it's not jam-packed. Even if it's not jam-packed. Because you have heat and you have foil, and then you have. You're not put food in an oven on Shabbos.
No, it's Hatmanah.
But also, I mean, I don't know what the problem is.
The oven's not Hatmanah.
That's because it's an oven. It's not an oven. I'm wrapping it to make it hotter. That's why I covered it. That's why I covered it.
The actual pan is full of food.
Mm-hmm.
You're just this guy at the bottom of this massive 9x13, and then you cover it. You weren't really mapping into the rest of the
Why not?
There's a lot of other things.
The pan's that Hatmanah?
Yeah.
But it has to be it has to be wrapped around the actual thing.
That's maybe yeah, maybe no. I don't know. But fine, let's go to the case that's fully packed. Let's go in that case, just so we could keep it easy, because I didn't talk about that case. Grad, I just wanted to end with a shaila, is that, and it's first cuts what you just said with the air, the way that hot water pumps work apparently is that it's a double sealed wall with air in between the two. So Rav Elyashiv is ma'irer, and apparently I try to see if they're on the market right now. I don't think they are. Is that they made them with not air in between? They put styrofoam in between the two layers. They put a cotton in between the two layers. And Zok Rav Elyashiv, then it's going to be a problem, and then it's not called kol kli echad because it's actually two things. I was just thinking that if you buy one of these hot water pumps without a hechsher, because you're like, who cares? I don't, whatever. Could very well be that you run into an issue. Stam, it's just something to be mindful of. And we have two shaylas that we left open-ended. One is what you're talking about, but do you have any found in Marikam? You're not sure? And Rav Vital, you're mentioning is if the food is all covered with air. We didn't talk about air. We didn't talk about air, which is going to get involved in our covering over the whole hot plate. The whole hot plate, whether the air is going to be the savior, maybe yeah, maybe no. Let's not go there. But what we're pointing out is that the one cover heter will only work if it's mamash and cover, and how you deal with Hashem Zalman's Isser Kal, Hatzlacha Ubracha.